Do live. Start saying something. Say hello. Say hello. I'm fucking rubbish at this. Sorry, she wanted to do it, but she doesn't talk much. We're just doing that live Q&A again. I've got questions saved up through the week, like 5, 6. So if anyone's got any others while you're on here, just send them across and we'll do it live. My sidekick. Very sleepy today. What's up, Ollie? Craig? Big Bazza. Right. So yeah, same as always, just going to run through the questions that were asked throughout the week, then record this, save it, put it onto YouTube. So if people want to watch back, I can link to where the questions are at relevant times. So the first question that I had, well, 2 questions that are kind of linked. So I did a big video on this, which is going to be out next week, on scale weight and what affects scale weight. So someone was asking me how sodium affects your scale weight in terms of salt-rich foods, and how you would see that in terms of fluctuations on the scale, which it does happen. We know that sodium itself is responsible, or one of the things responsible for like the equilibrium between the water that we hold within our cells in the body. So the more sodium rich foods that you eat, the more water you're going to retain. So if you think about a typical type, when you go out and you have like a big meal, pizza for example, or anything like that, just your typical like junk foods are quite laden in salt. So you'll find that the next day the scale will have moved up by 2, 3, maybe 4 pounds, and you haven't put on 4 pounds worth of fat in overnight. It's physically impossible to do that. The amount of food you'd have to consume would be humongous. You wouldn't be able to do it. So with that in mind, it's water weight. So, and it's just one of the factors that will affect the scale weight. So another reason why we need to be looking at our weight on a daily basis and seeing correlations between what you're eating the day before or the day actually on the day. So that then goes on to scale weight variations. Someone asked me how, what can affect the scale weight in terms of fluctuations. Really, there's an not endless amount of things, but time of day that you weigh yourself, how much you've eaten the day before, when you last ate in the evening, how many carbohydrates have you eaten? Carbohydrates will help to store water within the cells, how much fluid you drank, whether you drank alcohol, time in a month if you're a female, when you last went to the toilet. So many different things that will affect the scale weight. But there's a video that is going to be done on this, which will be out next week, and it was looking at scale weight fluctuations and also taking into account the amount of food you'd have to eat. So say I took a typical day of like binge eating and worked out exactly how much fat gain you would gain by eating like 7,000 calories in a day. And it is tiny, if that, because you've got so many other factors that come into account. Thermic effect of food, so how much energy you use to digest it, and also your increase in your uptake in your NEAT, so your NEAT will go up. Your non-exercise, anything not exercise, so moving around, stuff like this will go up, and that way you'll burn more energy by ingesting more food. I hope that makes sense. Cool. So those 2 questions are kind of related really. The third question was asked by James, and it was what are the best ways to cut calories without tracking? 2 schools of thought on this. You don't have to track in order to remove calories. You can look at what you're doing already and make some changes. However, if you're looking at a specific goal, or if you've got a time-driven goal, then I'd say tracking is going to get you there the best way, and also the easiest, and also the most effective. But however, it's not the only way you can do things. You can track by portion sizes, you can track by plate sizes, just by removing parts of a certain meal that you have, or removing a meal completely, fasting, intermittent fasting, alternate day fasting, so many other ways of tracking without actually tracking. So yeah, loads of options on that. Hope that makes sense. Who's that? Cool. Yeah, if anyone else has got any other questions, fire them on. I've got a few more. One that keeps getting flying around at the moment. Someone asked me that, is it necessary that you have to be in a deficit to build muscle? Do I need to be in a surplus to build muscle? Confusing me on that one. The answer is no. You can build muscle in a deficit. It's just not as easy because you haven't got the access to the calories, obviously. But you can build muscle within a deficit. You still have an adequate amount of protein intake. You still have maybe some form of carbohydrates there and fats. You can still build muscle. You just can't build it as well as if you were in a surplus. So this notion that we can't build in a deficit is wrong. I think it's just not as effective. Right. And that's it. So someone asked me about the slogan "eating more to lose weight." So I think they mean eat more, move less, which is some ridiculous phrase that was coined by some people. It sounds good, doesn't it? It sounds sexy. Eat more, move less. Like, who wouldn't want to do that? But if anyone ever says to you that's what you need to do, you need to run like 100 miles that way, because they are lying and they'll take your money and they're ripping you off. On the rare occasion where someone might be dieting for an endless amount of time at chronically low calories, might there be a place for increasing their calories to bring up their metabolism to then allow them to burn more. But that is so rare, it's unreal. Usually the case is people are eating more than they think they are. People misreport what they're eating. People lie about what they're eating. So there's countless studies now, and some real big studies that have been done into the misreporting of food logs, food diaries, and people do it by like 80-85% they misreport. So and whether they do it consciously or unconsciously, that's another topic. But the fact is that you don't see people over in starving countries putting on weight. They're not. They're starving, and that's because they have no food. Exactly. So when people say that, it's complete utter nonsense. It's just a sales line and a marketing ploy to get people to jump on board. So people tell you to eat loads more food in order to lose weight. They're lying. Cool. The other question was, what is the most important thing to factor into training for growth? So I take it they mean in terms of muscle growth, hypertrophy. So the most important fact, if it's just growth specific, then I would say some form of progressive overload needs to be in there. So there needs to be a stimulus, a progressive stimulus to the muscle in order to force adaptation, and then you progress on. However, most important factor to take into consideration with training would be adherence. So you'd need to have someone who enjoyed what they were doing and could see that they were going to get results from it. So you'd need to give them some form of program that they could see progression happening in, so it's motivational as well. But in terms of growth specific, progressive overload is the key, really. And however you come about that, there's loads of ways you can implement that, whether you use a progressive volume over time, whether you change intensity somehow by loads and rest times, or whether you do like a combination of all of these. There needs to be some progressive stimulus, and it needs to be logged and recorded. Is a big thing, I think, to see progression. If you're in the gym and you see it happen in gyms around the country, people go and do the same movements every single day or whatever they're in there, because that's what they feel comfortable with and they know. But they'll do the same loads, same machines, and they look the same. So if you're happy doing that, that's fine. If you enjoy that, it's not doing any harm because you're still keeping fit, you know, you're getting active and moving. But if you want progression, there needs to be some kind of stimulus that changes something. So you need to do that from load or from intensity. So yeah, progressive overload is key, and volume over time. So changing the volume progressively as well. And that's all I can think of on that one. But that's pretty much it. That's all the questions on there. I don't know how many people are still on here. Probably no one. Oh. Yeah, I know. So if anyone has got any more, I've got about 4 minutes and then I've got to go. I've got to go and train my body. Squats, Saturday squats. Yes, Neil. Neil is on. You nearly missed out, mate. I'm just about to go. But if you have got a question, fire it on now. I've just answered like 5. Big John's on. Big John. Big John. I've had, this is like a live Q&A, but if anyone has got any last minute questions, put them on because we've got about a couple more minutes. The previous questions will be saved. I will save it this time. Talked about sodium, scale weight, tracking, building muscle in a deficit, eating more to lose weight. But yeah, if you've got any others, fire them across. If not, gonna go and train some legs. Come here. Hello. Hello. She hates me. Right, I've got to go. Cheers.